Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good morning, everybody, on yet another gorgeous fall day. How is everybody?
We are doing well here at the station. It's a nice sunny day. Not too warm, though, unfortunately. I'm going to miss those warm days. I already do, so that's that. But how's everything down at the Rockland County Business Journal?
Let's warm up on a topic that's already had a little bit of a flame put under it this morning already. We have a story published this morning on the countdown on the cannabis deadline, meaning that towns and villages have until December 31st to decide on whether or not they are going to actively opt out or whether do nothing, which effectively is the same as opting in and becoming part of this new, and I'm going to say opportunity because I'm going to talk about this subject from the point of view of business opportunity and economic development opportunity. I know that you've heard George and Michael from Clarkstown and Ramapo this morning talking about decisions to opt out, and this seems to be what the majority of municipalities in Rockland County, the direction they seem to be going in. We are tracking this, and many of the towns and villages have yet to make a decision. So far, we've got about 4 solid, I think, opt-outs in Stony Point, Orangetown, the village of West Haverstraw, and Suffern, I think, was the other one. These are all those are all listed in the story. So we still have the rest of the towns and all of the villages to make the decision. Now, this is what I think is a little bit troubling, and I gathered this from what I've heard this morning and from the reporting that we've done so far. It seems to me that our public officials just don't have enough information yet to be opting out. It seems that there has not been enough public input, there's not been enough public comment, and that there's not enough knowledge on the subject, there's not enough education about how this is going to work. And so it seems like there's kind of a panic that has set in to simply say, well, we're going to opt out now, and then we'll opt back in later. As if that is going to be just kind of an easy exercise and potentially one without consequence. Now, the fix for this really is for the towns and villages to simply be looking at zoning codes and saying, okay, so, cannabis lounges and cannabis dispensaries, that's a new kind of business, although one with, great potential for tax revenues, and also to stimulate other businesses around it. Instead they're saying let's wait. Oh, I was saying zoning. Yeah. So the issue might boil down to, okay, so then where might these places be best situated? Let's look at our friend Michael Kohut, the mayor of the village of Haverstraw. So far, he, along with some of the mayors of the villages in Ramapo, they seem to be, I guess, the outliers, because they have decided they are not going to opt out. As Mayor Kohut says in our story, quote, "It's legal to smoke on the streets. It would be silly now to prohibit the shops." He points out it's a way to make money. It's a way for, that people will be smoking pot or using cannabis anyway, and that the towns and villages may as well benefit from the economic windfall that is possible. Now, here's the thing: is if Rockland, as a whole, becomes a place that seems hostile or closed down to this kind of new economic development, it will inevitably, there will be a window of opportunity, and that window will likely be lost. And a new slew of cannabis, lounges and dispensaries, they will go to places like Haverstraw. They will go to places like New Jersey, where the climate is open and friendly. And the other thing is, just to go back to zoning and timing for a moment here, is there are not going to be any licenses issued until 2023. So this gives all the towns and villages across Rockland County ample opportunity to amend their zoning laws, to look at their comprehensive plans, to figure out where these dispensaries and lounges may be situated that is more strategic. So, for example, to go back to the village of Haverstraw, the mayor said to me, well, okay, we may pass zoning regulations that don't necessarily allow these shops in the downtown, in the village, but why not put them up on Route 9, on the 9W, on the highway, to stimulate economic activity. And another interesting thing here about these dispensaries and lounges, which by the way will be highly regulated by the state, they tend to skew to be upscale establishments. Establishments that a lot of money is going to be put into them, and they're high end, and they're going to have the same look and feel as an Apple store or a Sephora. And what does this mean? I mean, look, the biggest, George spoke this morning about opting out. What does this mean for the Palisades Center? What does this mean for the Nanuet, the shops at Nanuet? What does this mean for the heart of retail? So I think this kind of backdoor or sort of trapdoor approach of, well, we'll opt out now and then we'll opt back in. It seems like it's being done more out of, I'm not sure, more out of, what I started out with saying. I don't think that there's been enough education. I don't think that there's been a real hard look at this. And I think that it's sort of started in one town here, and then it's just kind of sort of a domino effect where one town's done it. Well, that means another town should do it. I think the island here is going to be Haverstraw, with Mike Kohut taking the lead for the village of Haverstraw, and even Howard Phillips, the supervisor of the town of Haverstraw, seem to indicate, well, if the village within his town is going to allow it, then maybe it doesn't really make sense for them to opt out and prohibit it. There are also several villages in the town of Ramapo that, for example, Hilburn said that they will not opt out, and we have some sourcing that says that villages like Chestnut Ridge, Hilburn, and a couple of others. Chestnut Ridge, Hilburn, Wesley Hills, and Montebello appear to be leaning toward opting in. So I guess what we'll see are islands in Rockland County, which will be the de facto places where the cannabis operators will head toward, because they will be seen as friendly. So there's still some time. I think we're putting up a countdown clock on Wednesday that will literally show how many months, weeks, days, and hours are left for towns to make these decisions. But it's not as black and white, I would say, as it seems to be, and ultimately, we're a county that is constantly grappling for new sources of revenue and new ideas in economic development that's constantly being discussed. And I think this is it's kind of it's right there. It's an obvious opportunity, and I think just more education is needed. Much more education is needed.
Right. That's we've been talking this morning about how there hasn't been a lot of information on what the rulings are going to look like in terms of regulations and how to treat it in a public setting. So I understand certainly the apprehension from some of the supervisors, but you generally believe that this would be sort of a negative to hastily, if you will, opt out of the sale, or at least opt out of welcoming the retail sale?
I think it's a little short-sighted. I think it is hasty.
Too preemptive, if you will.
I think it is too preemptive, and I think that the interesting thing is that every single town and village has a mechanism that is zoning, to regulate where and how this takes place within their municipalities. So it's not as though they're lacking control on this. And there are rules that are already built into the law itself. For example, retail dispensaries or on-site consumption can't be located within 500 feet of school grounds or 200 feet of a house of worship. There are laws to this, and they're not complicated. Read Rockland County Business Journal's story today. We lay out a whole bulleted list of the, it can't be smoked within 100 feet of school grounds or a school bus. The retail outlets selling marijuana can only sell to 21 and up. I mean, we open vaping shops. We have, too many bars to count. It's a controlled substance. It's happening all over the country. It's not that people are not going to be using cannabis; they will. And there was a public hearing on this. This was interesting, also in the story. There was a public hearing on this in Nyack, and the village boards came into that meeting seemingly very sure about opting out. They had a resolution ready. And they listened to more than a dozen very articulate residents discuss reasons for them to, pause, to, hit the pause button. And among those is, and this is also discussed, is you can take a substance and you can actually have more control over it by not opting out, as opposed to opting out and then continuing to stimulate the illegal the selling on the streets. So there are so many good reasons, not to mention this one, okay? New York State collects sales tax on cannabis retail sales and pays 4% of that tax revenue to counties, which keep 25% and then distributes the remaining 75% to towns and villages, but only those who have the retail dispensaries. So, yes, I would say, this is an economic opportunity, and the towns and villages have the power to zone appropriately as to where these would go in their towns and villages, and to opt out and then to have the burden of opting back in or missing the boat on the early retailers and dispensaries that want to get in on the ground. To me, as a business, looking at this through the business lens, I really think that there has to be a more nuanced look at this. But we shall see.
Indeed, we shall. Thank you so much, Tina, from the Rockland County Business Journal. Where can people find the Rockland County Business Journal, as a matter of fact?
They can find us on rcbizjournal.com. They can get our free daily newsletter every morning at 7 a.m. from Monday to Friday. They can participate by sending us letters to the editor. If you have comments and thoughts about this issue or any other, please send us your letters. We will publish them. And we're really going to be drilling down hard on this subject and would really like to hear from people out there. If they have, something to add to this, an opinion, a thought, we are open. We're very interested.
Yes, indeed. We've had quite a few callers on this topic already. So the community has been vocal, that's for sure. But thank you so much again, and we will talk to you next week, if not before then.
All right. Have an awesome week.
You as well.